Hi, I'm Dr. Jason J. Campbell, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. In this video, I'm continuing my analysis into the occupation movement and an introduction into social theory. And the idea, if I can find my book, the idea is to go through this book, Social Theory, the Multicultural and Classic Readings, 3rd edition. And the idea is to take the information within the book and apply it to the occupation movement. The idea and the intent behind this lecture series is to demonstrate the applicability, right? To demonstrate the applicability of social theory. I'm obviously interested in the occupation movement. I've been a participant, in scare quotes, in the occupation movement, but my interest is more about the applicability of social theory. What we need to do is infuse a contemporary discourse of the occupation movement with social theory, to ground the movement in social theory. And that's the whole point of this. In the first section of the analysis, I went through and did a critique via Horkheimer of science and the role that science plays. My objective simply in that section was to demonstrate that science is also being used and being co-opted by Wall Street, by the bankers, as a means of production. And insofar science has been co-opted by the bankers to varying extent, by Wall Street to varying extent, as a means of production, science has stepped away from its primary social responsibility, which is the attribution of value, specifically social value. In the next section, this latest section, the section you're currently watching now, Section 2, my intent is to do a more conceptual, a more abstract grounding of the nature of power. Because what's going to end up happening, invariably, for the occupation movement is that quickly it will be what is the implications of the occupation movement socially. What are the social implications? What are the political implications? I've already done a video on political implications. Now, I think also the question needs to be asked from a sociological / philosophical perspective. What are the sociological implications of the occupation movement? The answer to that question is going to have to be rooted in a discourse on power. And as you guys know, discourses on power is what I really specialize in. That's my true academic strength, is a discourse on power. And I don't think anyone does power better than Nietzsche and Foucault. I think the combination of Nietzsche and Foucault is just an amazing account of power. You can really have an understanding of the complexity of a discussion on power if you're sort of grounded in Nietzsche and Foucault. I'm not going to go into the Nietzschean account because obviously I have a lecture series that is running simultaneously with this lecture series, and I've devoted, a ridiculous amount of time to a discourse on power with respect to Nietzsche. What I'm going to do is consolidate a Foucauldian account of power and apply a Foucauldian account of power to the occupation movement, and hopefully it will help organizers and protesters have a better understanding of this nexus of relationships. That all needs sort of qualification, and I will do that momentarily. Okay, so again, notes are always available. If you want to get access to notes, just click the link in the description field. It'll take you to the PDF. I've recently updated the notes, so you should check to make sure that you have the most recent, and as soon as you click, it'll be the most recent. But just click the link in the description field, it'll take you to the notes. Make sure you have the most updated version of the notes. This is going to be page 7, and we'll be doing section 2 of the notes. So this is Occupation of Wall Street, OCC. And this is section 2. And this is Power and Knowledge in Foucault. or power as knowledge. Power and knowledge is something else, sorry. Power as knowledge. Power as knowledge. Okay. Alright, so the first bit is the attempt to conceptualize power as force relations. Obviously, I'm going to have to qualify what power is and what force relations are, but I'll progress through this discussion slowly, gradually. As is the case with previous discussions, I don't want to just immediately submerge ourselves, the discourse, into very complex analysis. I want to first get our feet wet, have a sort of conceptual understanding of what Foucault is accounting for, and then also, as I've done in the past, give a synthesis of Foucault, but also the implications for the movement. This lecture series has specifically been designed to account and to apply to the occupation movement. Granted, I recognize that this is invariably going to date the lecture series because it won't always be about the occupation movement, but the social theory that is being applied to the occupation movement will be timeless in itself. Okay, so the first step, here's a quote from the text. Again, Social Theory, the Multicultural and Classical Readings. It's the 3rd edition. It comes from page 465 in the text. So if you have the text, you can read along, page 465. Step 1. Let's read, and this is a direct quote from Foucault. Let's see what Foucault has to say. Quote, "It seems to me that power must be understood in the first instance as the, 1, multiplicity of force relations." And I'll talk about this later, what exactly force relations means, right? This is going to be very important. Okay. "It seems to me that power must be understood in the first instance as a multiplicity of force relations, immanent in the sphere in which they operate." Meaning that where these force relations occur, the sphere in which they operate, and which constitute their own organization, right? Constitute meaning this is where force relations sort of come into existence, where they attain their relationship and their meaning, their significance. 2, as the process which, through ceaseless struggles and confrontations, transformation strengthens or reverses them. Meaning that the force relations are always in flux, right? They are being strengthened, they are being weakened, they are transforming, they are changing, they are receding, they're progressing, and so on. As a support which these force relations find in one another, thus forming a chain or a system, or, on the contrary, the destruction in contradictions which isolates them from one another. He's intellectually attempting to give all accounts, right? Force relations attract, force relations detract, force relations multiply, they are made sense of each other in the relationship they have to each other. I'm not going to go extremely deep in this lecture series because I want to keep it simple, I want to keep it introductory. Quick side note, and I'm not going to explain it, but for those of you who have an understanding of Leibniz's monadology, it's like the monad. So for those of you who understand what I just said, great. For those of you who don't, sorry, that comment wasn't necessarily for everybody, right? But you can think of it in terms of a monad. The destruction and contradictions which isolates them one from another. Okay. Number 3, as the strategies in which they take effect, right? These force relations, strategically now. So we recognize that there is a sense in which there is strategy in the nature of the relationship between force relations. And I know this doesn't make any sense, but just stay with me. Let's try and get through this sort of dense quote. Foucault is an excellent writer, but his writing is rather abstract. As the strategies in which they take effect, the general design or institutional crystallization is embodied in the state apparatus and the formation of law and various social hegemonies, sort of structures of power, consolidated structures of power. So, what in the world did any of that mean in Foucault? Again, Foucault, a bit abstract. What I'm going to do is try to conceptually deconstruct, or itemize is probably a better word, conceptually itemize what Foucault is saying at each point, and then show the relevance of what he's saying, and then apply it to the movement. So let's begin with the synthesis, right?